Speaker, this is James Knowles. It is about 11 o'clock. Hey, buddy, I really appreciate your help in getting to the governor. He is completely unresponsive. The National Guard is not responding, and they are letting our entire city burn.
A plea from Ferguson Mayor James Knowles, and a plea that was made to many lawmakers the night of November 24th when attempts to reach Governor Jay Nixon were unsuccessful. Just hours before that phone call, St. Louis County Prosecutor Bob McCullough announced a grand jury had decided no probable cause exists to indict Ferguson police officer Darren Wilson in the shooting death of Michael Brown. Governor Nixon held a press conference just hours before the announcement.
Together, we are all focused on making sure the necessary resources are at hand to protect lives, protect property, and protect free speech. The men and women of the National Guard will also be in the area to provide security at critical facilities like firehouses, police stations, and utility substations, and offer logistical and transportation support as needed. This will help free up law enforcement officers to do their jobs effectively.
Those words from the governor echoed ones he delivered on November 17th when he mobilized the Guard in an executive order. But they seem inconsistent with what local authorities understood a week before that. Through an open records request, I was able to get a hold of an email sent from St. Louis County Police Chief John Belmar to a staff member on November 10th. It shows the governor had no plans to move the Guard to the Ferguson Police Department as part of its response to potential rioting. In the email, Belmar writes, "Can we solicit the governor to put the Guard there?" Apparently, the Guard will not move to FPD per the governor. This email also discusses a meeting among state lawmakers about the possibility of having Ferguson Police Chief Tom Jackson step down and the impact that resignation could have. Belmar even seems to speculate the status of embattled Chief Jackson could have a bearing on the state's response. The Associated Press reported last month, and ABC 17 News was able to confirm as well, that a meeting took place among federal, state, and local officials in the fall about Chief Jackson. Whether that meeting had anything to do with the state's response on the night of the riots remains unclear. But I tried to get some answers by tracking down people who attended the meeting. Missouri Attorney General Chris Koster was there. I was just curious, were you at a meeting in November regarding that?
I was at dozens of meetings related to Ferguson.
Was there a meeting talking specifically about the chief, though, as far as pressuring him to step down?
The chief was a topic that obviously did come up, and whether or not he was doing a good job taking on the challenges of Ferguson has been something that has been discussed throughout the process.
But did the chief's unwillingness to step down change the way the Guard was deployed? I reached out to the governor's office via email and phone and only received a statement that didn't answer my questions. But just hours before a legislative hearing on the issue, Governor Nixon held a press conference where those same questions were asked. One of the first questions, why was the Guard not in Ferguson following the grand jury announcement?
First of all, there were Guard in Ferguson, and everybody knows that. They were guarding the command posts, and they were at other locations in Ferguson. So, I mean, I don't mean to be chippy about that, but they were there.
But local officials say the plan was changed just weeks before the announcement. So what or who changed his mind?
Well, I wasn't pressured by anybody. Obviously, you talk to a lot of people. Certainly, whoever is, I understood the responsibilities. I was acting on advice of folks who were working with on the ground.
I asked Governor Nixon about the meeting between top state and federal officials about the discussion to pressure Ferguson Police Chief Jackson to step down.
I don't know which meeting you're talking about. I don't know which officials you're talking about. I know there were discussions out there, and I certainly saw stuff in the press about that, and folks talked about that.
I also reached out to Ferguson Chief Tom Jackson myself and received this response via email from the Ferguson Media Department. Chief Jackson has stated on many occasions that although some have called for his resignation, he was not being forced out of a job. He also had no intention to resign, and that remains the case today. He is not commenting on what lawmakers said about his job or anything of that nature. That voicemail you heard at the start of this story was Mayor Knowles calling then Missouri House Speaker Tim Jones. I arranged to talk with both Jones and Knowles and met them at our ABC affiliate in St. Louis. What I found was that Knowles also has more questions than answers.
Now, I was told originally the National Guard troops were going to be placed in Ferguson. That was really the plan that Chief Belmar and others had proposed to the governor when they asked, you need resources, what do you need? They asked for resources. They asked for National Guard troops to be in Ferguson. I was later told that they would not be in Ferguson, that plan was rejected or changed.
Knowles says he was told that instead there would be police officers protecting those areas since the Guard would not be there.
You saw that night there were hundreds of police officers protecting the police department, the fire department, and the Ferguson downtown business district. But West Florissant did not have the protection it needed. I was told also, though, that the West Florissant would have protection from National Guard troops that were to be stationed at the command center that was nearby. We later found out that those National Guard troops weren't at the command center. So even though National Guard troops wouldn't be visible, I was told that they would be nearby. And nearby was supposed to be the command center. We find out later they were actually at Lambert Airport, and it took them, by the time that I was told that the governor had authorized them to be there, it took until 2 a.m. before they actually showed up in Ferguson that night.
Knowles said he exhausted every contact he had in the legislature from both parties to try to get in touch with the governor to activate the Guard sooner, but to no avail.
At approximately 11 p.m. that evening, the mayor, James Knowles, contacted me and left a message on my cell phone.
Despite several requests, Knowles says he has not been able to talk to the governor since the chaos of that night. But the governor maintains the plan executed that night was the right one.
Not a single person was killed due to the unrest in Ferguson. Not a single shot was fired by the patrol or any other law enforcement agency.
For someone to say, and it has been stated by several people, that we preserved life, no one was seriously injured or killed, so mission accomplished. Well, you tell that to somebody who's had their life savings put into a business, and then now they find out that insurance isn't completely covering it because civil unrest isn't covered by insurance.
The questions still remain unanswered. Why was the Guard called in so late? Why did the original plan change? Did local leaders just misunderstand? Or were politics at play?